Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of Intercultural Insiders. My name is John McGraw, and I help newcomers and expats connect across cultures to succeed in less time and pain. I am the founder of Hyaku Coaching, which is dedicated to helping you create your pathway to success in a new culture. And the purpose of Intercultural Insiders is to share the stories of people with intercultural experiences. So if you're feeling isolated or lost, you can hear something from the guests' experiences that can help you, even if it's just a reminder that you're not alone. And as you may notice, I'm in a different space. We don't have the bookcase behind me as usual. That's because my wife and I are house sitting my brother's home. So it's a different space. Getting used to just like adapting to a different culture. It's adapting to a different rhythm, especially because my brother and his wife have a wonderful dog. Yeah, Melvin is his name. You might hear him barking in the background. I'm not sure, but it's getting used to that that rhythm of working with a dog because we haven't had a pet. Personally, haven't had a pet since I was a child, since we were kids. So it's getting used to that, but I'm enjoying it. So hopefully, if you hear Melvin in the background, just get used to that. It's another adaptation that I'm getting used to as well, and my wife is too. So, as you may know, today is part 2 of the interview with Hitender Sachdeva. But before we get into that, I'd like to do another announcement of an event on behalf of my colleagues at New Canadians, which is the virtual Immigrant Business Expo that is coming up this on March 25th. Saturday, March 25th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's organized by New Horizons Media in collaboration with leading immigrant service organizations in Canada. So the Virtual Immigrant Business Expo is a one-day exhibition that will include workshops, panel discussions, a marketplace, and small business clinics. And again, it's on Saturday, March 25th. So to learn more and register, you can follow the QR code that's shown right here to find out more information about that. And now with that, I also want to mention that I will also be a panel guest on an upcoming episode of Cafe New Canadians, which is also organized, obviously, by New Canadians to have informative discussions and resources that are important to newcomers to Canada. And that will be broadcast on March 30th. And more details will be released then. And I'll post that more on my social media on LinkedIn and also reveal more details on the episodes here next week. So getting on to part 2 of the interview with Hitender Sachdeva. So just as a reminder for those of you who may have missed last week's episode, Hitender describes himself as a curious person in all parts of his life. He hails from India and he's been in Canada for 6 years now. And as a banker, he has worked in India, the Middle East, and North America. And he is also a member of the board for Brilliant Minds Group, which is an organization dedicated to helping newcomers and international students adapt to life in Canada. And in the second part, Hitender talks about the questions of identity as an immigrant, the differences in work styles between India, the Middle East, and Canada, and a small piece of advice that can make a huge difference for newcomers' lives in Canada. As always, this part 2 of the interview with Hitender is pre-recorded, but Hitender is going to be live in the chat, so feel free to ask questions and comment during the interview. So, without further wait, let's get into part 2 of the interview with Hitender. It's essential, really, to be able to connect with people in the local area. There are those, and I think it's an understandable fear that they're afraid if I let go of what's happening in my home country, that they might lose something about themselves. And I think sometimes there's an identity crisis. So what could you say to that?
I think when we move here as an immigrant, we always carry 2 sort of identities with us. And the first and the foremost identity would always remain from where we come from. So if somebody asked me today, what's your identity? I would say Indian, because that's what I've been practicing for the last 30, 40 years of my life. So I have become Canadian in the last couple of years, right? So getting into that sense, it will take some time for me. And most of my life has been part of that culture, part of that society where I'm deeply integrated. And then it's very difficult for you to leave that because you have your childhood memories, you have your growing up memories over there, you have your family, relatives and everything, your friends back home. So you connect and you can relate with them. So detaching yourself from that is not an easy job. And I would never recommend you detach yourself from that. And when you come and integrate yourself here, it sometimes becomes difficult. What we generally do is that we try to find people like us, whether it's our work area, whether it's our neighborhood, we try to find people from our own country. And that's where I go a little beyond. It's not that I'm against people from my own country. I love to connect with them, but I also try to find people from different country in my neighborhood who I can connect with them. If I talk about where we live, in our neighborhood, we have a mix of a community. We have people from Sri Lanka, we have people from Bangladesh, we have people from China, we have people from Jamaica. And I have great relationship with all of them. We interact, we even exchange our foods with each other. So it's basically you need to come out of your own comfort zone. So it is difficult for you to become one identifiable individual when you are living in a country which is diverse in multicultural, multi-country, multi-languages and all. So as I said, that I carry two identities. For my own family, I'm the same individual Indian. But for outside the world, I do not say that I'm Indian. I simply say that I'm Canadian. That's where I integrate myself. That's where I go and tell them, yeah, I'm a Canadian, but this is my background. I'm an Indo-Canadian. I follow this. This is my faith. This is my belief. And I'm quite respectful to your belief as well. Now, as I said, my next door neighbor is Jamaican. They love Indian curries. Whenever my wife cooks something, we share with them. And they bake cakes, they bake fish. And whenever they do that, it's a feast and it's a party at our home. So they send stuff to us. So the culture is not really understanding each other, but participating each other as well. And the food, variety of food, our Indian food is full of spices, full of variety. And generally, when we go to other places and we meet with other people, so their food is like bland or normal, boiled or maybe steamed or maximum grilled with some oil and little spices on that. But our food is colorful. Our food is completely, I would say, creativity. So when we share that with people, so we tell them what are the ingredients, how we cook it. And when they eat it, they feel it, they taste it, tastes better. And then the same thing they do it when they bring their stuff to us. So that's another way of connecting and then detaching yourself from your identity which you carry, integrating into the identity which you have now. Because when you are in Canada, you are Canadian. More than anything, you are Canadian. So that's how I do it. So when I'm outside of my home walls, I'm Canadian. Maybe when I'm back in my home, I'm completely Indian. Because the moment I'm outside, people are not bothered whether I'm an Indian or who I am, what my religion, what my land is. How they see me is a person walking on Canadian soil. So when I'm walking on Canadian soil, I am a Canadian. So that's my true identity for the world. Inside, for my family, for my friends back home, I'm still the same. So that's where I would say I carry two identities.
It's just adapting to different situations. You mentioned that you lived and worked in the Middle East. So what was your journey like going from India to the Middle East to Canada?
My experience living in India, Middle East and Canada, if I talk about from a work perspective, from a need perspective and the urgency perspective, is completely different. So in India, we have a lot of population. There, everything is like on fire. You need to solve things to a very quick pace because there are people waiting for things. When I moved to Middle East, other than the aspect of it, what I also saw there was there was no burning desire of getting things done. Okay, we'll do it. Yeah. Get things done. No worries, no rush. So it was that kind of a thing. So the kind of work which I would do in 2 hours back home in India, in Middle East, the similar amount of work will get done in 3 days. And still that would be considered as very aggressive. So for me, it was like, wow, 2 hours of work, I have 3 days to finish. It's a luxury for me. So adapting, coming from that fast-paced world into a kind of a relaxed world was a challenge because you are tuned to a particular way of working, that you have to come up with a certain amount of productivity. And if you're not getting there, then you are not satisfied. And my initial few months were quite frustrating because I was finding it very hard for me adapt and to adjust in that kind of an atmosphere where I can do this job in 2 hours. Why do I need to spend 3 days? But that's how the process is. And when I moved to Canada, I realized Canada is even much slower than Middle East. So the kind of work or the amount of work which we were doing there in 3 days, here the same amount of work we need to do it in 1 week. That's the kind of processes we had. Now, I would not say that people are lazy or people do not know how to do that first. Everything is there. I think is the urgency, is the demand, is the process which controls the entire thing. The number of steps you need to follow to reach to a particular point. So that's where your decision making gets slower, and that takes time. If I talk about certain thing in India, the decision making is faster. Why? Because there's a lot of a delegation, there's a lot of an empowerment on the ground in terms of professional dealing. So when you have a decision making at the ground, then you move things faster. The why this is there? Because of the demand of a particular thing. Because there's a lot of population. If I talk about from my own banking experience perspective, if there are 100 customers that will come on a day-to-day basis to deposit cash and to withdraw cash from their bank account, so you need to have some tools and some empowerment on that branch level to decide that how they are going to manage that volume. So you need to provide that kind of an infrastructure immediately to them. So you need to provide machines to count those notes. You need to maybe open 4 or 5 teller counters where you have different queues to manage. Then you also need to think about automating some of those processes. When I went to Middle East, I saw there was no urgency because people are quite relaxed. They're sitting, they're sipping coffee, they will wait for their turn to come, and then they go easily deposit cash. And there are no cash counting machines over there. Everybody is doing manually. So when you are counting manually, so it will take some time. Can you do a process faster? Yes. If the machines are given there, the process will become faster. But people have realized that there is no need to have that. Why? No, because the maximum denomination of the currency in the country was $100, like we have here in $100. But back home in India, you have variety of denomination. So even you have 5 rupees bill there. And if somebody is carrying 100,000 Indian rupees in 5 rupees note bill, so it's a huge amount of currency. You cannot do manual counting there. So you need to have some equipment to support you there. So the same thing when I relate it. So it's not that they are lazy or they can't do it, but that's how they are structured. And when I moved here in Canada, they have a different set of processes. So somebody would validate your account. You don't really need to fill up a form here. You just need to hand over your currency to them. They will validate everything. And then they will validate and count and everything. And then they will tell you, okay, your money is deposited. It's a different way of dealing with situation. So that might be taking extra couple of minutes, but that doesn't mean that they're slow. But all I say here is that the amount of work which we used to do when I compare with Middle East and Canada, I see a huge amount of difference here. There is no urgency here. There is no fire. Now, if we talk about these days, our medical system is crumbling. People are still not agitated. People are still not demanding from the government, hey, we need a better healthcare system. People are relaxed. That's the culture. And that's what you learn when you integrate yourself with the culture. It's not that people don't need healthcare here, but their minds are wired in such a way not to make a hue and cry of anything. But government will only take care of things when you demand, when you go and shake your politicians in your neighborhood to talk to your MPs or MP. Hey, what's happening on our healthcare system? When you start asking questions, when you start raising objections, and when you start breaking these points during elections, then only you can make changes. It happens a lot, I've seen in India, because people are woke up. People go and revolt. People go and challenge the government decision. Here, I do not see that. That's another difference I have observed. And when I talk about Middle East, so Middle East is more, if you see, is democratized from the outside for the world, but internally those are the kingdoms. Those are being ruled by some kings. They decide what they need to do and when they need to do. They don't really follow what their people are asking for. So these are some of the differences which I have observed between India, Middle East, and Canada. So I think it's just another culture where you stay calm, composed, and I see every Canadian is just very humble, very calm, very peaceful. They're not very aggressive in terms of at least asking for your own rights.
The banking and currency systems is an illustration that cultures don't develop in vacuums. I think understanding the why really helps. Once you can understand those reasons and understand that it's just another way of doing things that are different than what you're used to. And certainly, I think there are things that we can definitely learn from other cultures. Maybe that sense of urgency might not be such a bad thing. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to bring up?
I do help a lot of immigrants and newcomers and international students. I'm also part of BMG, Brilliant Minds Group. It's a not-for-profit organization where we run a lot of programs for these newcomers, and we help them upskill. We help them to integrate within the society. How we do that is we give the same example that you need to break the ice. You need to go and meet people outside of your comfort zone. Try and make friends who are not from your country, who are not from your own culture. That helps you to learn. That helps you to network better. That helps you to build more confidence when you go and speak out with a stranger. So we teach all of these techniques. We basically invite a lot of industry experts like you in our programs who come and who share their experiences, who share their knowledge, who share the struggle as well, that how they got into this society, how they settled in this country, and what were their experiences. Then they also share their tips. Since they are the expert, they train them. And this is basically, most of the people say that if you want to learn from people's failure rather than successes. So whosoever has come here and struggled, and that person is teaching and guiding those newcomers that, hey, this is what you are going to face. Do this, don't do that. So that person is basically telling them from his or her own failures that he tried this, he could not succeed. So he is telling them, do not do that. Or if you want to do that, do it different. Brilliant Minds Group is that organization where we bring these kind of people together who help these newcomers understand what this place takes for them to settle and make this country as their home. It's a different culture. It's different weather. It's different way of navigating things. Because 6 months in the year you live in cold, and not everybody is so comfortable and clear with those cold conditions. So sometimes we do get questions from people that during winter, country is working or country comes to a standstill. We say even during winter, you have more productivity. People work more in winter compared to summertime. Summertime is the time when people go and enjoy. Winter is the time when people work harder. They celebrate and they work harder. And that's the best time for you to experience and get integrated in this country and live this country, go out in the snow, feel the weather, and then make yourself part of it rather than saying that, oh, it's cold outside, I'm not going to go out. So we tell all of this to all these newcomers through our BMG. We have partnered with a lot of other not-for-profit and social cause organizations like PM and Immigration Women for Business and all. So those are our partners who help us contribute. Then we are also coming up with certain programs in collaboration with Sheridan College, where we are planning to train these international students. Now, most of the time, these international students, they have the education, they have the experience, they have the knowledge, but they still don't know how to use them in the market. And we guide them. Now, the main thing which we focus on is we tell people not to focus on their experience which they carry. We tell them, pay attention and focus on your skill rather than the experience. Because Canadian market is more from a skill perspective, not from an experience perspective. If you know how to serve a customer, it doesn't matter whether your experience is 1 year or 10 years. If you can serve a customer better, with 1 year experience, you're a good person. You are job ready. If you have 10 years of experience, great, you're still job ready. Ultimately, what is the skill? Customer service. If you know how to serve a customer, that's what it matters when it comes down to finding your first job. And BMG helps these individuals identify their skill, which are hidden in their resume, which they don't even know. All they focus on the experience. I have 10 years of experience in customer service. So they focus on the 10 years. What we tell them is focus on customer service, not on 10. That's the difference we are making in people's life. And this makes me feel proud to be part of it. It gives me a sense of satisfaction and belongingness when I moved to this country. So I had no support system. And I feel that pain when people come in this country. So they would not have any support system. So when we go and extend our help to them, we feel privileged. We feel humble. And when they get succeed in their life, they respect us. They reciprocate the same level of respect to us, which is like great.
Such a valuable thing that you're doing and that BMG is doing by giving them the tools that they need to find the work, to shift that understanding from experience to skills, and paying forward from what you've gone through and using that to help those international students and other newcomers to find what they need and to thrive and succeed here in Canada. It's really something.
Yeah, all small tips. I would not say that we give them great piece of advice and then they become successful. Sometimes the small things which you share based on your experience can help. I share a lot of my experience with newcomers when I tell them, when you go for grocery shopping, always look for price match. Most of us, we don't even know what is price match because we have never heard of this concept back home in India. We never had that situation because there everything is priced and labeled. And if we are buying a toothpaste of a one particular company, any grocery store you go, it would be the same price. So you don't really need to have that concept of price matching it. But when these people come here, they don't see any pricing label over there. So the same toothpaste, Walmart would be selling it for $2, Loblaws would be selling it for $3, right? And if in your neighborhood, it's only a Loblaws, so then you are losing a lot of money because you're buying the same product, but on a premium. And that is another way of telling these guys, hey, try and look for price. The grocery shop, they do it. Don't shy away asking for it. It will help you save some money. And initial days of your struggle, every single penny counts. It looks like a very small piece of advice, but think about the value it is adding to a household. And I remember that when I was told by one of my friends about this price match, we were like 3-4 months in this country and we had no idea about this price match thing. We would just go to a supermarket, buy what we need, pay whatever, the bill will come. But that gentleman explained me the process. And he even told me that hey, there is an app which you can download on your phone and that carries all flyers weekly in that app and you can compare the prices from each different supermarket, and wherever it is cheaper, you go and price match or you go buy there. You save a lot of money. And you won't believe it. When I started doing it, every week, I was able to save 20 to 25 bucks from my grocery bill. And my initial days, 25 bucks a week, which is like 125 a month, was not a small amount. When these things we talk about with people in our seminars, in our programs, these are some of the eye-openers. These are some of the information which they carry, which help. So you don't really need to have a powerful setup and a powerful program to help people. These small steps also guide and help new individuals coming here.
Every little bit can have a huge impact, especially as time goes on and they add up. We're coming up close to the end of our time. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave off with?
I think I would just simply say that interculture thing is always exciting and fascinating. So I always try to learn new things and I always try to observe what I can carry from that. I don't shy away mingling with people and talking to them about my practices, my culture. And I feel proud when I make them aware. And I'm sure that they would also feel proud, similar way when they speak to me about their practices, their customs, their religion, their languages, their food. It helps me to learn things. And that helps me to sometimes break the ice. And when we are in a professional setup, when we are in a social gathering, it helps to connect with them. And sometimes when you need to make people outside of your own social circle, you need to think about what preferences they have, how you can make them feel better when they are coming at your house. We had a Chinese neighbor and we wanted them to come home for our dinner, and we had no idea what they like, how we make them comfortable at our house. So we did a little bit of a research. All we knew was that they do eat fish and the chicken, but we do not know any of the recipe the way they want it. So our way of eating food is a little spicy and full of herbs and oils and all. But their way of eating food is slightly different. They do not have too many spices. They have a little grill kind of a stuff or boiled kind of a stuff. And what we did, we kind of research kind of a recipe, which is, I would say, the middle ground, which is like not too spicy, not too bland, where we can eat things and they can also get better at it. And we cooked it that way. When they came our home, they loved the food. They liked it. And that was our way of learning. When we are inviting somebody, we need to think about themselves as well, that when they are coming, that what kind of thing they like. So I would encourage anybody who's listening to me to go out from the comfort zone, make friends outside of your culture, outside of your society, outside of your own people. Because this country is all about integrating, networking, and that's how you learn inclusiveness. With your own people, you would always be able to connect. But the art is when you try to connect with people outside your culture. That gives you great learning. And I think that is what my tip would be, where I would encourage people to go speak to people outside their society, outside their culture, outside their religion.
Thank you so much for all of what you shared through this interview. It's so valuable, and what you do and what PMG does. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. This is really, really wonderful.
So that was part 2 of the conversation with Hitender. And just like last week, there were a number of great points that came up in that conversation. Some of the things that stood out for me in particular were the aspects of the working pace, such as the differences in the pace of working in the banking industry between India, the Middle East, and Canada, and the fact that there are reasons for that. So I think that that's really important to keep in mind, because sometimes when we're adapting to another culture, it's easy we focus on the surface and just think, oh, this is strange. Oh, it's just, they're doing this because it's just a crazy way of doing things. It doesn't make sense. But there is always a logic behind it. If you get really into deep analysis of understanding the culture and then understanding your own way of thinking about things and how your culture influences the way that you think about different things. So that, I think, helps to having that awareness of your own culture, your own cultural influences, your own cultural biases, opens up your thinking so that you can adapt more easily and accept other things, other ways of doing things, other cultures, rather than judging them. And that's going to help you adapt far more easily and reach success more quickly as a result of that. The other point that stood out for me, of course, was that little bit about price matching. And it's just a great example of how, even with just a small tip, that can have such a huge impact. And we always have the idea of helping others that we have to create some kind of grand program or grand event. Even just doing a little bit, giving a little bit of advice or just a little bit of time to help someone can make such a huge impact. So thank you again, Hitender, for all of the great stuff that you brought in with this discussion. And very quickly to mention next week's episode, we're going to be shifting again. So next week's episode, we have a conversation, part 1 of a 2-part conversation with Risa Hinokuma, who is a senior manager in customer support in Evernote, based out of Austin, Texas, originally from Japan. And in that discussion that we have, the first part, she talks about her early experiences with culture in the US and Thailand, the cultural differences in connecting with people and developing relationships, and customer service expectations in different cultures, and really what an impact that can have on the work environment and how you connect with stakeholders. It really is quite a great conversation, I think. So, really looking forward to sharing with that. And as always, until then, keep navigating your way between cultures towards your goals. See you next time.